Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Anxiety Unraveled. I'm Mike Maddox, your host. With me is Caroline Hall. Caroline, it's great having you on the program this week. Already, I've learned a ton, and we've talked about some really interesting aspects of anxiety disorder. We've specifically been talking about OCD and all the different subtypes of OCD and how it interferes with someone's life, and that there are treatments available. In fact, not only available, but very effective. I don't know if this is still true, but I know at one time it was said that OCD was one of the most, if not the most treatable mental disorder. And is that still the case? Do you know?
Well, of the anxiety disorders, it is the toughest one. And it's no longer in the anxiety disorders, it's under the ones that have to do with compulsive disorders.
Okay.
So it's been moved to a different category, even though the underlying theme is anxiety. So trichotillomania, hoarding, um, skin picking, those are other compulsive disorders. So now the DSM-5 says it's over there. But it is extremely difficult. So when somebody says you know, um, I have OCD or I think I do, or I do some assessments, and we didn't talk about that, but we certainly can. Once they have a clear diagnosis, then we do the treatments. The treatment plan follows that diagnosis.
And
So
is treatment, I guess the point I'm getting to, whether it's the most treatable or not, I mean, it's incredibly difficult, as you're
yeah.
pointing out. It is treatable, though, right? I
Oh,
mean,
absolutely. Yeah,
okay.
I want to leave on a, we're not leaving yet, but I definitely have some personal testimony I'd like to share with you from some of my clients about the absolute struggles and the feelings that they're never going to get out of this, and then the hope that they feel.
Yeah.
One thing is, and that's why I'm so glad we're talking about treatment, because we already mentioned exposure and profound exposure
Response,
response
response.
prevention therapy, which is, the gold standard or used to be. Then we were
Uh,
talking about CBT, just regular, let's challenge our thoughts. But I was telling you before the break that there's something called inference-based cognitive behavior therapy.
yeah.
Um, and this has really caught my attention because instead of working at the end, like here's our compulsions, let's do exposure work, it says, let's talk about obsessional doubt. And obsessional doubt is what fuels the obsession's power. And so obsessional doubt calls into question your character, your identity. So, for example, if you said, uh, gosh, is a stove on? I don't think I've tried, I want to check the stove. Well, that makes you doubt your sense of responsibility. It makes you question if the stove is on. There's a lot that it makes you question. And so these authors are purporting that what if we could help you with your obsessional doubt and help you
Hmm.
figure out from the front end, not the back end.
Yeah.
So that's
From the
just one of,
obsessive side, right? Right
yeah,
in the
yeah.
beginning, get it more at the root.
Exactly, exactly. And then something called confusion. So we all make inferences every day, right? You see somebody with an umbrella, you go, it must be raining. Logical inferences. But inferential confusion is when somebody confuses reality with facts or with,
Hmm.
probabilities. So anybody who has anxiety is dealing with possibilities, not probabilities. And it's worth me mentioning, like if I said, Mike, what's the probability you would be in a airplane accident? It's so, if you look it up like an AI, it's 0.00000, right? It's so minute. But if I said, what are the possibilities? That's when Mike goes, well, perhaps or maybe or what if. That's endless.
And,
And
and and I know people with OCD that topic is really interesting because again, it not being psychosis, we understand that it's not probable, right? It's not probable that I left the oven on, to use my example.
yeah, that's the
Um,
logic, right? You
and we even
logically
understand
know.
that it's a remote possibility, but the fact that it's a possibility is what catches us, right?
Yes. And these authors, I love it. They said it just needs enough doubt. That's why he calls it, the doubting disorder, right? It just needs enough doubt for it to break through the wall of common sense. And
Yeah.
once it hooks you,
Yeah,
because there's
that's
always,
where it
but
gets you.
maybe and what if, right? So again, this particular format, the inferential based CBT, talks about the confusion and the obsessional doubt. And we do not have enough time to talk about all of that, but it's interesting for me to propose this to my clients to say, we're not doing exposure work. We're not doing traditional CBT. I want to know what this calls into question, what your obsessional doubt is.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, then you're on your way to recreating a new narrative, some reality testing. Um, Once you've resolved the doubt, there's no need to do the compulsion. So that's one other one. Yeah,
That's really powerful. And medication has shown to be effective as well. I'm not asking what
absolutely.
medication, but I know people have gotten help through medication.
Absolutely.
What about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but just a quick thing about medication. And, uh, I would say 50-50. For some people, it helps, some people it doesn't. But what we do know is serotonin, which is a neurotransmitter in the brain. So if we have, one axon and another, there's that little gap. And serotonin is one of the ways that the messages go from one signal to the other. It is believed that people who have OCD don't have the right amount of serotonin, not enough. So an SSRI, a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, like your Zolofts and your Paxils, those are what they do is the serotonin gets released from this one cell and it won't reuptake. It stays in that gap a little longer, giving the other cell a chance to get the correct signal.
Yeah, my experience, and I talk about this when I've done presentations on my story with anxiety disorders and OCD, is medication is an effective tool, but it's just a tool in my toolbox. I had to find
Yeah.
a whole bunch of tools that worked for me. And there wasn't a pill out there that just took care of the problem. Right. And I'm grateful today that there wasn't, because by learning all the other tools, the
Yes.
cognitive behavioral therapy, the exposure and response prevention, physical exercise, which has an enormous impact on the brain, eating right,
Absolutely.
sleeping right,
All of it.
my
Yoga,
faith life.
meditation. Yeah,
Yep,
you named them all.
my
Yes.
faith life, all these things. And really important element that I talk about is the role of support groups. You do that at the Anxiety Resource Center, the ARC. How effective has that been, and how is that different? How is that a different form of treatment than, say, therapy?
Yeah,
If you could talk about
absolutely.
that.
Um, I'm glad you brought that up because so one of my clients, after she was hospitalized, her condition was she was afraid to throw anything away. Not because she was a hoarder, but because she really felt a part of her was going somewhere. In fact, she even said when I asked her for this personal testimony, and she's so much further, she's it's so manageable, but she said, I can feel my heart, starting to experience some palpitations. I said, "What's going on?" She goes, "The thought that my words are out there and I can't get them back still scares me." But she
Mm,
said, "This is almost like an exposure." She said, "I want to do this, knowing that I could help somebody else." But
that's
as far
powerful.
as groups, so she was hospitalized, had to quit work because she was throwing everything away, checking everything. Um, and so when she went to the hospital, she said the reason that the hospital groups didn't work is that it was so new to her and so overstimulating and people were coming and going. But the ARC, she said, because she was part of an OCD group for a long time, she said you start to get to know people's stories. You realize that you have something to offer. Everybody has we kind of laugh at it like, what are your crazy compulsions? We call them, or
Yeah.
creative. I said, let's not call them crazy. Let's call them creative. Do you tap your head 4 times and spin around or go in and out a door?
Yeah.
And so she said that was amazingly helpful. Another one of my college students who was also hospitalized, she had so many issues. She just stopped. She had issues with water. Water became something that was dangerous. And so she couldn't brush her teeth, she couldn't shower, she couldn't leave her room. So she was hospitalized. But the minute she got into a group, she said, something changed for me. I just realized I'm not alone and that other people have this and that other people have succeeded. And she said, she went back to college and she is thriving. There
That's
was
awesome.
just that, yeah. And it really had, because she said, yes, all therapy's been ha helpful and all that, but she still maintains some of these relationships. And they
Yeah.
are just like anyone who goes to AA, right? You have community, you have a sponsor. When you
Yeah, I
feel
mean,
like you just
part of
have a
the power
local, yeah,
that I've experienced through that is just understanding that you're not the only one, right?
yeah,
That there's in the case of OCD, there's millions and millions of us that can sit in a room with you, not at the same time. That would be
right.
unmanageable. But there's a small group of people that can sit with you and say, "Me too." Right. I have
It's a me
very
too.
similar issues to what you're talking about. I can totally relate. I get you. Right. And that in and of itself was
Exactly,
powerful.
Mike.
But then
Mhm.
then to take it one step further, to hear from others in the group things that have worked for them, therapies that have been effective, ways that they've made progress, and then to hear from people that have been on their journey for a while and have developed their toolkit. I call it my toolkit, um,
Absolutely.
and can say, "Listen, I have OCD, but I have a healthy, happy, successful, thriving life, and you can too." That is powerful for somebody who has just been hospitalized and feels like I have no hope, right? And
Yeah.
that's what the ARC exists to provide, and I think does provide through the support groups like the one you lead.
Yes, yes. Would you like me to read some of the personal testimonies?
We've got a couple minutes, and
Okay.
yeah, read one
Yeah.
or two of them for us. The testimonies from people that are in the support
My
group at
own
the ARC.
clients that gave me verbal permission
Yeah,
to do this.
yeah.
One gal, college student, female, she says, it's fighting myself every day. I'm trying to drown, I'm drowning in my thoughts. I can't trust my thoughts. I'm avoiding everything that triggers me, but I've learned to give myself grace.
Mhm.
She said there are darker days that, for example, when I told you she went to a psychiatric hospital, she said there was a time I actually believed that if somebody had cancer, or even I thought somebody had cancer, I was going to get it. It
Mm,
was so isolating. It was so scary. Sometimes I would just scream and cry. Once she got into group, as I was telling you, she realized I can be safe. People get me. And when she went back to college, she said there was an optimism, and I brought that optimism back with me. And I asked her, so what are some things you do when these thoughts come in? She said, I actually sometimes just walk away now. I
mm.
just get out of that situation. Or she said, I just look at myself in the mirror and I say, what are you doing? Like
That's
this.
awesome.
Yeah. So that was
She's learned her toolkit that is effective.
absolutely. But she has conversations with herself. She said sometimes cold exposure helps. So I'll have a fan or ice, or I'll just have a tactile sensation, like she'll put something in her mouth
Hmm.
just to change the environment. Um, so that was her. And then
That's really
another
powerful.
college student, she said, this is how she explains it. I can be having a normal conversation with somebody, but find myself struggling in my head as these intrusive thoughts keep popping up. And the other person has no idea because I can manage it. I can hide it. I stay calm. I stay collected. I don't portray it, but the compulsions are not always noticeable. They don't know what's going on in my head. And that's when we talk about pure O, there's just an obsession. There's always a covert compulsion. She's ruminating, she's saying little things to herself. So she says, I'm always multitasking. She
Mm.
also said this disorder is very lonely, but then I'll skip to the treatment part. She said therapy has been, obviously changing, but she said, I learned the educational component, and I really try to educate my clients about the neuroplasticity of the brain and
Yeah.
even how parts of the brain, the circuitry, just there's an on and an off and it doesn't work. So she said that was really helpful. And she did try medication, and she said it just took the edge off. It gave me a chance to put these tools that we were working
Yeah.
on
I
into
like
play,
that. That's
right?
what I've often said is it gave me a fighting chance. It gave me the ability
Yes,
to
a
learn other
fighting
tools.
chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then
That's
finally,
powerful.
oh, I'm sorry, Mike,
It's
go ahead.
okay. Yeah, we're almost out of time. That's really powerful stuff. And so let me ask this just before we wrap. If a person is listening and they have a loved one or they themselves are struggling with anxiety disorder, how would they reach you if they want to reach you, or how do they reach the Anxiety Resource Center? What's the best thing they can do?
Yeah, Google Anxiety Resource Center. Don't put in ARC because that stands for something I think that's maybe autism or something. So you
Yeah, it's
actually
a
have to
different
type
group.
in
Yeah, it's
Anxiety
actually,
Resource Center.
I think
Yeah.
anxietyresourcecenter.org is the site you
Yes,
want.
thank you. The official
And,
one.
and what about
Yep.
for you, for your practice?
Yeah, before that though, the website, even if you don't join our groups, because we have in-person, we have virtual, we have topic nights, we have workshops, there's all kinds of blogs and wonderful information. We have a lending library if you want to go right to the Grand Rapids, where we are downtown Grand Rapids. Um, but oh, you asked about me. Anyway, I just want to make sure that people realize you don't actually have to be part of a group to
There's a
benefit from the website.
I'm glad you mentioned that. There's a
Yeah.
ton of resources on the website and
Mhm.
links to other resources. So
Yeah.
check it out. And then for you,
Yeah, for me, I have my profile on Psychology Today. And so under Find a Therapist, you literally type in Psychology Today, find a therapist. You can kind of go therapy shopping, by the way, find clinicians, because if you're looking for somebody with OCD, you would type in the specialty and it will narrow your search. You can put your zip code, your insurance, all these things to narrow a search. But if you find me on there, it's under Caroline Lowry Hall. Um, you can easily reach me. There's my phone number and an email, and I will always get back to you
that's outstanding.
if we're a good
Caroline,
fit.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation and just how much I appreciate the work you're doing, not only at the ARC, the Anxiety Resource Center, but also just with your patients that are struggling, providing them with that guided expertise that they need to get to the point where they realize they're not hopeless and there is a
Not at all.
future and there is
Excellent.
treatment and there is help. So
There
thank
sure
you for
is.
being a guest and thank you for
Well,
the great
thank you
work
for
you're doing.
having me.
It's been my pleasure. You've been
Okay.
listening to Anxiety Unraveled. Thank you for listening. We will be back next time. And we hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, like it, click on it, follow us, and we'll be back with more episodes in the near future. Have a great day, everybody.